What's up, MMA community, YouTubers, and all the money-making team that wants to get in on some of the action? We're going to be hitting up on Thursday from the casinos and Bellator card coming up. And I love these midweek opportunities, man. It's a blessing, honestly. Like, I can't tell you what a difference it's made in my life, your life, I'm sure, if you're following, and many others who are now, especially with the pandemic era that we're in, where, you know, life is different and jobs are hard to come by, and people sitting in their houses with their kids longer than they're used to are spending more money on food, electricity, costs are going up, and income is going down, you know. So it's an awesome opportunity that UFC's brought to us every single week, as opposed to every month only. It used to be hardly even every month. Now we're having weekly opportunities, and it's been consistent for so long now that there's no way it's going anywhere anytime soon, at least. And the best part about it now is they're not just once a week opportunities. Your maestro, your MMA parlay king, has found you even more than once a week opportunities by throwing in the mix some Bellator events. We had some last time with DWCS, the Dana White Contender Series opportunities. We went perfect. We found underdogs. What was it, that guy who was a minus or plus 300? He was fighting against the guy who everybody was high on and nobody else picked him. Not even the gurus that were just specializing in that field picked him. I was the only guy who found you an underdog. I told you he had the more wins, the more impressive overall skill set, and he dominated 30-27 decision. It's in my, go to my DWS video, and it's in my comment section. You'll see the picks, and also in the video. We found the main event, the Souza guy who fought against an undefeated guy who was the favorite. Even right before the fight started, we slammed it because Michael Bisping even told everybody that he became even a bigger underdog. And I told you that not only was he going to win, but he was going to win off of his back. Remember that fight where the Brazilian guy who I said I've seen him beat people from his back? Well, he ends up winning the fight from his back, and he beat somebody who was undefeated, and we cashed in on the underdog end. So this is another one of those midweek opportunities where, if you remember last week, Bellator's, or the last time I've had Bellator's event, we had a perfect night. All of our bets, all of our parlays, all of our future parlays, which I told you I'm still at 100% because everybody I've picked for you guys to go into the following events with those pieces of the parlays are still intact. So I, thank goodness, don't want to jinx myself. Knock on wood. We're batting at 100% for future parlay picks. Every time I say I'm giving you guys a future parlay pick, it means I'm taking somebody from one event and I'm locking him into a future parlay for a fight event that is coming up in the next days or so, that the casinos have already opened up the lines for us to be able to mix in more than one event onto our parlay slips, which I remember, if you guys are paying attention, I've told you guys this is a trick for you to be able to make like a huge parlay, like a 9-leg parlay that looks impossible to hit, which pays at almost impossible odds, like the ones that we've hit so many times. That is really actually super safe, because anybody can take at 1 or 2 fights in the card that you know for sure will go a certain way. It's mismatches, older guys versus younger, whatever the case is, and we find the easier ones and we put them in with other easier ones, and we make a beautiful paying parlay because you're being patient. Patience is the key. If you're not thirsty and you're not trying to cash in the same day, you can wait a couple of days more, because this is Thursday and Saturday, 2 days apart, Friday, Saturday, and then we can cash in on it. So what's 2 days for us to get 15 times our money? You bet 100, you win 1,500. Hey, be quiet. Anyways, so we're gonna everything's intact. I got a lot of patrons happy that they only need 1 or 2 more fights to come in for us on Saturday, like a Ciryl Gane and one other fight for them, and they're getting 15-1 odds on their parlays now because we were able to do this. So let me give you some. Hey, I'm gonna give you some picks for Bellator 254. We got McFarland versus Velasquez, a women's fight coming on, the main event. I don't like to put women's MMAs. Yeah, so this is a long card. There's a lot of people I can't trust. They're not dependable for one reason or another. We don't have the time to get into it today. Hey! For one reason or another, we don't want to get into the whole full card, because I'll never recommend, I'll tell you this, look, this organization, that's the lower organization, it's the smaller organization. They don't have as much revenue, sponsors, and all the reasons for it, not the popularity. They can't afford to have a full roster of dependable fight. Even UFC is being the cream of the crop, the best of the echelons, the #1 organization has people that sometimes we can't depend on, and we wouldn't recommend betting on them. So those fades, we call them, there's a ton of them. There's way more than we would like on a card in the Bellator events, because that's what they can afford to have on their organizations, the D-League, you know, for the NBA. So we're gonna just pick a few that are either mismatches. There should be going one, like, remember the last time we had a Bellator card, there was a guy that every other channel told you to pass on. I don't want to touch this. The guy's got a 0-0 record fighting against another guy with a 0 record, and so they've never heard of him, they've never seen him, and they said pass on it. Nobody else gave a prediction on it. Not only did I give you guys a prediction, I told you he was one of my most confident picks, and the future parlay him. Guess what? He dominated in the first round. I told you it was going to be a quick finish because I researched. He was his wrestling pedigree. He was like an Olympian level wrestler. He was way stronger, bigger. The other guy was very chinny. So I did the research. I found his amateur records, some tapes on him as well, and I was able to give you guys the opener for that fight. It was the first fight. It was a quick first round knockout, and he cashed in just exactly how we expected him to, and so it was one of our best plays. So even though the guy's not dependable, but he was fighting against the guy who's even less dependable, and he was actually not as bad as most people would have thought if they just paid attention to what they usually do when they're making predictions. If you're not an actual real fan or a former fighter or all of the above, you are morally going to be the type of a person that looks into statistics and just what's on paper. Papers can be very deceiving. That's how the bettors get fooled most of the time. It's a very old trick that the casinos and the Vegas likes to use, and we don't fall for that on this channel. That's what separates us from the boys, you know. All right, so anyways, we're now gonna focus on the fights that I am more confident in. I mean, I could give you guys, if you're in the Patreon, this is the benefit of being on the Patreon. Also, please don't forget to hit the like, hit the subscribe, so I can keep giving you guys this free content. You can make some money. Everybody, it's a win-win situation, and I would appreciate it. So anyways, so we're gonna go, if you're in the Patreon, you're gonna get the full card breakdown. You'll get all the details that I didn't have time to mention it on the videos because I get to multitask while I'm doing my other jobs and other stuff that I gotta do throughout my day. So I'll multitask throughout the day. I'll be able to fill out breakdown descriptions and all the important details that only my patrons will have the benefit of seeing, because I can't be on video 24/7 all day long, you know. All right, guys. So join that, and there's different tiers, so you can start in the lower ones, make some money off of my tips and benefits and perks of being in there, and then slowly, gradually, I mean, it won't take, I say slowly, I'm being modest and humble, because after your first week of betting, you should be able to pay the entire full year for the ultimate package in one day. All right, guys. Magomedov versus Matheus Mattos. Now, a big theme on this card I noticed, and I'm very happy to take advantage of this with you guys, is there's a lot of fighters, like the marketing machine. I'll give the credit to UFC for this. They're very slick in the UFC. It's sometimes, unless you're at my level of knowledge, experience, and you know the politics very well, the people, the history, and when you're studying UFC, they're less transparent on who they're trying to push, who they're marketing. Remember, I told you guys in the last video, before you bet, pay attention very closely to who they're trying to push, who they're trying to make look the better out of the two fighters, and who they're trying to have bigger plans for in the future. And the matchmakers are always going to give that. So sometimes the better fighter could be at the disadvantage because just the style matchup. So a guy who should be the favorite, who should be the better fighter, is given a guy who's just the perfect opponent for him. And there's a lot of examples of that for this card coming up, such as the Moicano. Names is my worst thing. I apologize in advance. Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev, whatever his name is. That fight was perfectly, for example, he opened up as an underdog. He was a plus whatever Rafael. The smarter guys like myself and you guys watching realized that he shouldn't be the underdog, and they started slamming him. And that's why I told you guys when I opened up my video right away, these are the fights that you want to slam them on. Put as much money as quickly as possible on them. And then there's other fights that we have to wait on, like the Dern fight, for example. Anyways, so back to the point, matchmakers will make it, and the marketing machine will make it harder in the UFC to find out who's the guy that they're trying to push and give the advantage to. But Bellator, not so much. They'll put a guy who's got 20 fights in the organization, undefeated, 20 of them out of 25 of his wins. These are real numbers, by the way, so pay attention, knock them down. 20, there's a fighter tomorrow on Thursday's card. 20 out of 25 wins by submission, most of them in the Bellator organization, fighting against the guy who's never even had a single win in the Bellator organization. Not even one win yet. And but he looks good. He looks like he's got a good record, only one loss. So it looks kind of scary from the outside if you're not really paying attention to and you don't know your stuff. It would be a fight that you may even be misled into betting for the wrong guy there. So anyways, that fight, we'll put in some parlays. I'm going to give you guys, if you're in the Patreon, as well, how to bet it. The system that I use that allows you that even if there are some wrong, like I had a guy, can you believe this? Even though we had a near perfect card last week for UFC, we only got one fight wrong, and it happened to be the fight that I told you guys will be a close fight. It could go either way, so I marked it in a specific way that you guys would know if you're in the Patreon by color coordinating my picks. The blue picks, the ones that I circle in blue, are the ones that are going to face adversity, and they're not very good for parlays. That was the only one and only fight that we got wrong, and we knew it was a chance of it getting wrong. Some guy in my Patreon, in my YouTube comments said that because that was the fight that didn't go their way, they had a losing night. I don't even want to try to think about how that's possible, unless the guy literally has just put every single fight in one parlay and then put all his money in that parlay to make it so that unless he's got a perfect night, he would not make any money. That's the only way I can imagine he lost that night, because we had a perfect night. We didn't get any other fights wrong, and it was the fight that there's a reason why out of 50 combinations, and 50 combinations, we only got 5 parlays that didn't cash in. It was like 40 out of 45 to be somewhere in that area. Okay, specifically, it was 40 out of 47 parlays of ours cashed in, to be precise. And 7 of those parlays that didn't cash in were only off by one person not cashing in for us. So it was an awesome week, man. You made like 30 times your money back if you were a Patreon, because those slips are only going to them. Anyways, guys, back on track. We got Magomedov. Now, here's this guy, Magomedov. Believe it or not, I don't know why he's in Bellator, not UFC. This is a guy who holds a win against Peter Yan. He's a champion who would have been undefeated if it wasn't for this Magomedov guy. He's the only guy in the first and only guy that ever got a win over Peter Yan, and it wasn't a fluke. You know how I know it wasn't a fluke? Anybody can get a win on any day, right? John Jones has a loss to Parker Porter. Remember him? I think it was Parker Porter on his, but I know he's got a loss to somebody who's not good at all, and it was a disqualification. Michel Pereira, he's got a loss to Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez didn't even land one punch in their fight. He got 10-8 dominated by 10-8 rounds, all 3 rounds, but he won the fight because of some fluke accident, some disqualification crap. So anybody can get a loss, right? It could be a fluke or a lucky punch even, or some guy got distracted, he came in with an injury like Figueiredo's loss. Figueiredo should be undefeated. The current champ that's main eventing next week's card, he should be 20-0 right now, undefeated, but he went into his fight that he lost with an injury, so he was there's a reason why he lost that fight against the guy he's way much better than. What's his name? I forgot his name, but he's fought recently too, and he's not that bad of a fighter, but he's kind of at the end of his career right now. But even when he was in his prime, he was no Figueiredo. He wasn't better than Figueiredo. Anyways, but a respectable opponent. Back on track. Sorry, I get sidetracked a lot, man. When you're a fan of the sport and you start thinking about other fighters and other older things, you get sidetracked easily. Anytime you have a passion for something, you enjoy it, you like it, it's easy to get sidetracked and fall into other things. So I apologize for that. All right, Magomedov is a guy who holds a win over Peter Yan. As I mentioned, he's fighting against the guy who on paper looks good, on physical appearance looks good, but if you go into his fights more thoroughly, you'll see this is 2 different levels. For example, he fought against the same guy, Peter Yan, and he got knocked out in like the first round. It was a TKO, real bad. And I was trying to say it wasn't a fluke with Magomedov because he's fought him twice. So he's got 2 fights with Magomedov. Both went to decisions. He went all 3 rounds. I'm sorry, with Peter Yan. The guy's a guy who just finished beating the legend, one of the greatest of all time in the history, Uriah Fabers, Jose Aldos. This guy's put away everybody. He's beat everybody by knockout or late stoppages. He hardly ever goes to decisions. Hardly. Well, this guy took him to decisions twice, and the first time beat him. So that's a big statement. And he's fighting against the guy who's fought against nobody. The only time he had to step up in competition, he got knocked out. His head came off almost. So that's who he's fighting against. So he's a good parlay pick. He's got nobody impressive on his resume, and the competition is very bad. They usually got more losses than wins, or very close, or from organizations that are, you know, holes in the wall that you've never heard of. So bad fighters and bad organizations. The level of experience, competition, the skill sets, everything is in the favor of Magomed, and he's not even that big of a favorite. You would think he's like a minus 10,000. No, he's just like a minus 200-300. So very good. All right, next one, very similar. I wish I had somebody here. Just my name girl is not feeling well. She's under the weather, so she'll be taking a break for the next day or so, but we'll have her back soon, and she'll be saying names for me. All right, Yamauchi. He's 25-4. Awesome record, very good win streak. This guy hasn't had a loss since Michael Chandler, who's currently in the UFC, because he shined from the rest of the guys in Bellator, even though he lost against Pitbull, and he's had a lot of other people who were more impressive than him in this organization. But for some reason, he was able to jump over to hop ships onto the UFC bandwagon, and he got a deal over there. And I remember, if you guys remember, in the Felder versus RDA fight card week, I was the first guy to tell you guys that, watch, you're not going to see Chandler fighting for 6 months, maybe longer, because I told you guys that he's just playing this game with UFC so they can market him because USADA, they do tests only for UFC fighters, not Bellator fighters. They're in the when you're coming over to the UFC from Bellator, where most of the Bellator fighters are juicing, they're on some type of performance enhancers, and most of them even admit to it. They're not afraid to admit, because it's legal for them. They haven't banned it in that sport, so there's no, why be ashamed of it? Vito Belfort, they all came out, and even UFC's guys who got punished for it, they admit to it because there's no line. You can't deny something that's out there, and people are just aware of it. What are you going to do? You can't just say that the tests are wrong, but I still had to get suspended and fined for it. What are you going to do? Keep lying forever? Lies are like spider webs. When you make one, you got to make another and another, and eventually just doesn't work anyway. Anyways, back on point. I told you guys Michael Chandler will probably not be in a fight, and he'll keep avoiding fights. Like, he tried to pretend like he didn't want the Ferguson fight, but as soon as Ferguson booked the fight, he ends up trying to call him out on social media to make it look like he was trying to fight. He's not trying to fight. He's got to be out of the PEDs, the steroids, got to be out of his system for 6 months. Because even if he's testing dirty, a lot of people are like, you know, this guy, what are you talking about? If he tested dirty, we would have known about it. Nope. There's a clause in the system. USADA does not make you, it does not put your dirty laundry out there unless you're ready to do it first. So until you open up about it, or unless you had a fight and it came in the results after the fight, that's a different. But if you haven't fought or you haven't announced that your failed test came back failed, then they won't do it either, because there's a lot of things that happened in the past where, like, people were accused of doing things that they didn't. There's something, it ruined their careers. They can argue. So for one reason, who cares to get into the reasons why, but USADA doesn't break the news for you if you haven't done it first. So that right now they could be hiding it and we would never know. But that was my opinion, that we won't. That's why, the only reason why a guy who used to fight every 3 months against nobody's ever heard of is now all of a sudden in the best organization, getting paid way more money per fight, and now wanting to be picky about who he's gonna fight. Come on, man, we ain't stupid. Well, I wasn't born yesterday. All right. So anyways, so that my theory is now looking more accurate and more certain every time I see his shenanigans on his social media and news events. All right, back on track. So we got Magomedov. He even sounds like a killer, right? Just the name, that anybody who has that name, they're similar to Khabib's name, is probably a good fighter, right? Those guys, they train with bears since they were kids, from what we've seen. All right, oh yeah, we're on the next fight. Yamauchi, 20 out of 25 of his wins by submission. His 2 last wins, first round submission, so even more impressive. And he's fighting against the guy who Bellator hasn't even signed for a long-term contract, and he's just supposed to be there to make Goiti look like a great fighter so they can keep building him up, and then he'll fight like a pit bull or somebody with a bigger name in his division, though, you know? And the guy's way older. He's 36. Remember I told you about UFC and Bellator or MMA years? They're like dog years. 36 is really like 70 years old. So they wear and tear, you know? My dog just looked at me like, what? What did you say about me? No, you guys are okay. You got a million more years to go. Don't worry. All right. All right. Next fight I liked on this card was Grant the Truth Neal. I call him the Truth. So I hope I'm telling the truth when I say he's going to win this fight, because I'm telling you he should be a parlay piece. He's on a 10-fight win streak right now. He's looking better than ever. He finishes most of his fights. He's got a mixture of tools. He's very well-rounded. He's got a 4-0 professional record. Fought against way better competition than his opponent, Maurice Jackson. So my money is on this guy's a pretty good physical specimen as well. So Grant Neal, who's fighting out of a great camp as well, Genesis. He actually is training in Colorado, and I don't know if you guys know anything about Colorado and the way they train over there on high, like the guys like Ferguson, I think, used to train there, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Justin Gaethje as well. A lot of fighters. So they have like high altitude, the mountains and stuff, so their cardio is always going to be tip-top shape. They train in atmosphere that's very hard for breathing and stuff, so when their stamina builds up at a much better rate than usual. So they usually do have good cardio, and their training sessions are more difficult. And I know when I was training, let me tell you guys, like, I swear to God, man, when I was a full-time boxer and I used to train 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, it gets to the point, no joke, I swear, you get to the level of you can run, not sprint, full speed running miles. After you're finished with your run, you master the technique of how to breathe. It becomes so natural for you that at full speed, going as fast as you can, running for an hour, after this say stop running now, you can stop running, or you stopped running whenever you felt like it, because you can go on forever. If you're in the right shape, you train properly, you're doing things correctly, and your system is working right, and you're doing everything right, your technique is good, you're never gonna go out of breath. I used to go mile, I didn't even sweat. I would finish miles and not even be out of breath, and somebody who did like a quarter mile at not even full speed would be hurt, their kidneys would be hurting, they'd be slouched over. Like the guys who I was training, they couldn't even keep up for 5% of what I was doing. But you get to a level, a point where once you've pushed your body to long enough of doing anything, you break through a level, a barrier that you weren't never at before, and you stay there until you stop doing it. Like anything else, you know, you got to continue to do it to stay at that level. So these guys are usually real good level. They train at high altitude, and so I expect his cardio to be in tip-top shape. He's got a mixture. He's got half of his wins by knockout, the other half by TKO or submission, I mean. All right, and he's never lost a fight. He's undefeated. He's a good specimen, as he's 6 feet tall, 200-something pounds, got a solid six-pack, very good shape. All right, so this is a guy who I'd like to pick. Like I said, besides his professional 4-0 undefeated record, he's also got a very good regional record on the regional scene. He's done very well. He's put away most of his opponents, as opposed to his Melvin Gillard, who used to be in the UFC. He's fighting in some like fly-by-night shops. He's bouncing around all these different. He's way past his prime. He was never even that good of a fighter back in the day. Like before MMA evolved into what it is today, he was kind of a good fighter. But against the opponents like the Cosmots, the Neal Magnies, he's a caveman. He's extinct. Those type of fighters are. His last fight, he had to fight against Melvin Gillard, and you know, so that's nothing impressive to brag about at that stage of his career. And before that Melvin Gillard fight, his opponent had fought Maurice Jackson, had fought Andrew Capel in a different organization. Like these guys bounce around, so every fight of his is in a different. He hasn't had 2 fights back to back in the same organization in a long time. That tells you everything you need to know, that nobody wants to sign him. Just like Bellator doesn't want to sign him for more than a 1-fight deal, because their sending him in there for a reason, and that's why they're very transparent, unlike UFC, about what they're trying to do with these fights. They brought him in to take somebody's head off and get out of here. Go back to wherever you came from, you know? So he lost to a guy who's got 7 losses, 16 wins, nothing impressive, but he lost to him in the fight before the Melvin Gillard fight. So my studies showing me that Neal should be able to walk through this guy with no problems, no adversity, easy parlay piece. Remember I said when there's no adversity, I don't circle it in blue for my patrons. I'm doing these breakdowns, remember, for only all the people that need help during the holidays, Christmas around the corner. I'm trying to be generous and do my pay forward, you know. I'm sure that somebody would help me if they could. So I'm giving you guys some help, make some money for free. But starting back in January, just for the sake, because remember, I had a good job. I still have a good job, but I decided, because out of my passion, what I enjoy doing over here, to bring you guys free content so I can help you guys eventually, hopefully help me too, you know? All right, guys. And it doesn't have to be personal. Like if there's a guy out there right now with a family who needs to feed his kids and found a way now to make some money, you don't specifically have to be the guy who helps me. I'm just saying, like, it's, you know, if somebody down the road, well, maybe one day we'll see this video, they'll want to subscribe, and maybe if I didn't do it for free out of the kindness and generosity of my heart for you guys, that guy might have never seen this video, he might have never subscribed, and, you know, help me out. So thank you guys for your time, just your time, and motivating me to keep continuing all this comments and the appreciation that I be getting from my DMs, and I really appreciate the love you guys are showing and support just from that, not even financially. All right, guys. I don't know what's going on with my computer, man. I'm a caveman too. We were just talking about cavemen. I don't know how to work these things. I'm going to be obsolete soon when computers take over. My computer's talking to me. It's making all these noises, and I don't know what it wants from me. So, let's see here. Maybe I can shut it up. Hold on. Unplug it. I'm like Fonzie, you know? Fonzie used to just hit the jukebox and it would fix. That's how I fix things over here. All right, back on track now. Okay, so I'll focus on this a little bit more on this thing, and then I'm gonna do on this Bellator card, and then I'm gonna do something that's even more important. That's gonna be more helpful for you guys, make you even more money. And this, what I'm gonna do next, is even more money, worth more money than anything else. Because if you guys are bettors, if you guys are just smart people, you would know that more than anything else, one of the most important things to us is line movement. It can make the difference on whether or not my wager will make me $100 back for my money, or will it make me $10 back for my money. The time is sensitive. Time is of the essence on line movement and betting, because you got to know, you have to be able to pay attention to, is this line going up or down on our fighter? Is it becoming more expensive and less profit, or more profit for us if we waited until closer to fight night to lock it in on our bets and our parlays and our single bets and whatever else, you know? So I'm going to tell you guys which fights to hammer down right away, which fights to wait on, and then for UFC as well. So let's go, or for UFC mostly. All right, so let's finish this card up really quickly here. We don't have too much time, so I'm just going to go down to the picks instead of the breakdowns, more importantly. All right, so the next fight I gave you guys already. Let's just do a quick recap. Please write these down, because I may not do a recap at the end. We've got Magomedov, the guy who beat Peter Yan. Yamauchi, the guy with 20 wins out of 25 of his wins by submission. Last 2 being first-round submissions against a new upcomer with a one-fight contract, I believe it was, if I remember correctly. So that guy's a good pick. The other guy was Grant, the Truth, Neal versus Maurice Jackson. We picked Neal in that fight. And Robson, Gracie Jr., undefeated. 3 out of 3 of his fights, all 3 of them in the Bellator organization, were by submission finishes. And he's fighting against a guy who's got as many losses as he does wins, and they were not impressive. One of them was even by decision. The other one was by knockout, and if I'm not mistaken, it was against the guy who has more losses than wins. So a combined total of his wins versus losses on his opponents that he did beat, the only 2 people that he beat have a combined record together of 4 wins and 20 losses. So he's only got 2 wins in his career, and those guys together have a total of 4 wins and 20 losses between the 2 of those guys that he beat. And those 4 wins are actually suspects as well. So they're not anything impressive. So they were giving me fights with guys who have no winning records on their record either. So very suspect. Another 1-fight contract deal. They're giving it to a guy with the name Gracie after his first surname. So that's the whole reason right there. They want to build him up. They want to make him look like a world beater, a killer, to build up a big name fight after a few more fights to make it look like he's the killer, and UFC can't have him. We have the better. You know how many times Scott Coker, the president of this organization, in interviews said we got the better fighters? His main goal, he wakes up and goes to sleep thinking about, how am I going to be better than UFC today? How am I going to make my fighters look better? And this is how he does it. It's a snake move, because as a fan, this is why I don't enjoy watching the sport. I want to see 2 guys who are on the same level doing an entertaining and I don't want first round knockout some guy who's it's almost like jumping somebody with 5 of your friends who's by himself walking, you know. What's the difference? This guy's got levels, black belt, and you're putting him against the guy who has no business being in there. He's got 30 losses and 4 wins. You really think because he stepped in the ring he's a fighter? Come on, man. It's mismatch, and it's not respectable. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy watching it. I mean, if I have to make money on it this way, what else can, who can blame me for it? You're giving me the opportunity. So, all right. Anyways, back on track. So I've given you guys the picks for this card, and now let's go on to the UFC card that I told you I'd give you line movements where they're gonna be at. All right. So the Rafael fight, the guy started as an underdog, okay? So he's opened up as an underdog. Now he's the favorite, and that means that by fight night, he'll be even the bigger favorite. So that's a fight. You got to slam it on a single bet ASAP. And you could probably, if you're trying to close in some other parlays that have people that you can't wait on, you should lock him in on parlays. Don't worry, because it's not a bad number. He's still paying very well. But, and like, for example, if it's on the parlays, like when you're in my Patreon, you get a bunch of, so I will specifically tell you which ones to wait in. So don't worry, if you're my Patreon, you can go to sleep now or go do whatever you have to do. This part does not really concern you, because I'll be doing that for you guys. But the rest of you guys got to take notes and pay attention, all right? Because there will be some fighters that if there's a conflict where one fighter, I'm telling you, you have to slam him and pay and close the bets before the pay becomes worse. And then there's going to be another fighter who is the opposite. So if they're in a parlay together, you'll be like, what should I do, right? So there's actually a system. If I see that one guy's at a specific number growing at a specific rate, I'll recommend. So I don't want to waste the time for you. That's irrelevant for you guys. So I won't do it for the YouTube channel, but I'll do it for the Patrons just in case you guys are watching as well. So, sit back and relax. All right. So for you watching at home right now and just need to know which ones we need to move on and which ones we need to wait on, let me break it down for you really quickly, okay? If you're going with my picks, assuming, right? But at least if you're not going with my picks and you want to go with the other guy, you'll know what to do. It's the opposite pretty much. So if I give you a fighter and you want to go with his opponent as somebody you would rather bet on, and if I say the guy who I'm betting on, you should wait for him, that means the other guy is somebody that you should hammer down really fast. So if you're going with the opposite pick of mine, meaning you like to lose, joking, then go ahead and do the opposite of what I tell you to do for my opponent, for my pick. All right, guys. So the first fight, we're going to Figueiredo Moreno card, December 12th, this Saturday, 2 days after the Bellator card we just broke down. For Dalcha and Carl Robertson fight, I think that's off actually. No, that was canceled, so we'll skip that. Brandon Moreno versus Figueiredo. Some of these fights, it's neither here or there. They pretty much at the same, but Figueiredo is becoming a bigger favorite. So the sooner the better, but it's not one of those that's moving out of control, and it probably won't be much different by fight night. If it'll be different, it'll be slightly, not much. So you could do either or on that one. But so that will be, for example, for my patrons, if there's another fighter in there that's moving fast, because Figueiredo is not a big deal, we could wait. We'll end up moving on that one instead of waiting because one of the fighters is moving faster. So that would be the one that's more important for us. All right, back to, again, you don't have to, this is what you guys pay me for, so don't worry about having to understand the science behind this. That's my job. You guys are just sitting there looking beautiful and waiting to retire early. All right, Chaos Williams. No, he's not on this card, is he? Oh, I'm looking at the December 19th card right now. Hold on a second, sorry. Oh, I can't wait, man. You know how I told you guys this card coming up on Saturday UFC is a great card. Fighters that we know, that I've studied time after time after time, who I will not be wrong more than once out of the entire night, if that. Next card is even better. It's a card that has got a lot of trusted, dependable fighters that will do what we expect them to do and be who we thought they were. No big surprises in store for us, I don't expect. And we should be able to make bigger parlays comfortably and cash in like our other weeks, like the Khabib card. They're usually the big card, the big ones, the ones that they really are they're trying to make memorable. They don't put guys who are, like, for example, that week I told you there was a lot of bad fighters. It was almost as if they were trying to find out who they were going to give their walking papers to. Remember who they're gonna fire. It happened just so it wasn't a coincidence. A week or so later, just a couple days ago or so, Dana White announced he's firing like 60 people. So you could tell what they were on. They had an agenda, and that was the theme of that card. And those are real. That's why that was the week. Half of the YouTube channels didn't want to do predictions, and they skipped that week. They blamed on Thanksgiving and this, that, or the other. You know, construction. When the site even said construction, crazy stuff. Anyways, but we did well. We did well. If you did what you were supposed to do and you listened, you did well. We've never had a week where we got more wrong than right. So we're okay. And we got to make up for it in quality, and how the betting system will always work if you do it correctly. Sometimes, but people get greedy or have selective hearing and reading, and they want to do on, you know, what they were wanting to do. Sometimes what you want and what you should do is not always going to be the same thing. Anyways, back on track. All right, so hammer down Figueiredo if you'd like. If not, no big deal. You may even be surprised. Sometimes weird things happen. Some guy who's a millionaire puts a crazy amount on one other guy, and then it ends up moving the opposite way. So you never know. There's always a chance of that happening as well. So, but if it just continues to do what it's been doing and it's supposed to be doing, then Moreno will be a bigger underdog. So if you like Moreno on this fight, you want to take a chance on the underdog, it's better for you to wait to bet on him. All right, guys. Charles Oliveira versus Tony Ferguson. If you're liking Tony Ferguson and that's who my pick was, then you're going to have to probably, in this case, actually, it's going to be better to wait because a lot of money is coming in from recency bias, because everybody thinks that Tony Ferguson is damaged goods because of his last fight against the world beater, one of the best in the world. So for that reason, they're going to think that he's coming in and damaged and not the same, and his momentum is gone, or his whatever it is not going to be there. His confidence might have gone up, but Tony is, if you know anything about him, he's the opposite of that. So I'm glad that a lot of people think that, because it's going to be bringing in more money for us. Tony, the last time he lost, he went on a 12-fight rampage win streak. He didn't lose for 12 more fights. Had the longest win streak in the division besides the current champion at the time. So awesome guy. He's very, very determined. He's very proud. We've discussed this in the last video. I don't want to repeat it again. Look at my last video when I talked to the timestamps are there. Just click on Tony Ferguson. Anybody you guys want the breakdown and predictions to, just look at my last video or go into the Patreon, because the ones I didn't break down in the video are in the Patreon. All right, guys. Charles Oliveira, Tony Ferguson. We got Ferguson, and I said the longer you wait, the more money you'll make. So it's good to wait if you could. Also, remember, my post-weigh-in and face-off video is essential. It can make a big difference. It can cause us to even switch our picks. Sometimes it's happened, like the RDA and Felder fight. We switched to RDA, and we cashed in on that. So we hedged off, and it pays off. But for other reasons as well, a lot of things I pick up on that are very important for betting. So I recommend that it's a benefit to wait so that you don't have to hedge and cost. Like I had a guy one time who bet 30 before listening to my picks. He had listened to somebody else's picks, and I was able to talk him into it. I posted the conversation on my wall on my Facebook. He bet $1,300 on, who was it? I forgot. I don't remember what. He bet $1,300 on somebody who was a slight favorite. And I told him that the other guy was supposed to be the favorite. He should have been the favorite. And I gave him a very long, detailed explanation behind it. He ended up putting $1,500 to hedge off of the guy he picked from somebody else's channel. And not only did he win the $1,500 bet, but the $1,500 bet, because it was on the underdog that I gave him, that was supposed to win. I explained it was something to do with recency bias and a lot of some stuff like that. I'll have to go back. I'll give it to you guys in my next video. I'll tell you which fight it was. I remember it was a Brazilian guy and a white guy. I just can't think of who the fights were. But anyways, he put $1,500 on the hedging because of what I determined off of the face-offs, and he won his. He not only didn't lose his. I mean, he lost the $1,300 bet, but because you can't cancel a bet, but because he bet $1,500, he got his $1,300 back from the bet that lost that he would have never hedged off if it wasn't for me. And then he also won more money because not only he wagered $2 more hundred, but because it was paying plus money. So like things like that we pick up on, and it may be necessary for us, but most of the time we don't hedge. It's just more like of a reconfirmation, like somebody who I was already expecting to win, I'll be more confident in him winning for one reason or another. So that's a great addition. You guys want to make sure you don't miss that segment. Make sure you hit the notification bells and all that good stuff. All right, so we got Rafael Fiziev. That's the guy who I told you was the underdog, and he's becoming a favorite. So you want to slam that one as soon as possible because he's moving fast. So this is one you don't want to wait on. At least do some parlays and at least do your single bets now. And then if you want to do more later on, you always could do that as well with the other parlays, you know. All right, Kevin Holland versus Souza. Oh, it's still at a pick'ems. He opened up as a huge favorite. I didn't even know he was at a pick'em. See, I don't pay attention to lines too much. I'm doing it for you guys, really, to be quite honest. But he opened up at, this is value. Remember how I told you guys Joseph Manez was the best value on that card where he fought against Luke, whatever his name was? Well, Joseph Manez opened up as a 2-to-1 favorite. Same exact, maybe it's a sign here because he opened up as a -175. And so did Kevin Holland. And now he's at a pick'em. So that tells me that by fight night, he'll be at an underdog. He'll be the underdog in this fight. And for some reason, the 41 or 42-year-old Souza Jacare will be the favorite of this card for some reason. And I'll tell you why, guys. Again, I didn't want to focus on this too much, but recency bias, bad IQ. He shows to be careless and flamboyant and shows off and plays around with his opponents, kind of fighting at the level of his opponents sometimes. He can do that. He's done it in the past. And also because of the big name value behind Souza. He's a Brazilian fighter. They come with a big following, big audience. Also because of the last-minute replacement pick fight for him. He wasn't expecting to have to fight this kind of a style and this kind of a fighter who's known to be dangerous in an area where he's known to be put in on the ground. He's shown bad takedown defense in the past, but that was usually in the later rounds after he gassed out against younger, hungrier fighters. I know you're probably getting scared now, but don't be scared. All this stuff sounds bad. I'll tell you why, and I might as well not have to save you guys. Kevin Holland's a safe pick. He's not going to be found. He made it now. If this is the type of guy, if he wanted to, the reason he opened up initially as a 2-to-1 favorite to the odd makers, if this guy had somebody had put a gun to his head and told him fight as serious as you can, use your black belt in kung fu, use your skill set, use your IQ to the best of its abilities, and win the fight, he'll tear through these guys. He'll tear through Souza at 41 years old, especially. And this is one of those fights where he's got a point. He wants to prove a point. He's got an agenda for the future. He's looking past this fight kind of as a stepping stone. He knows how important this guy's name value brings on his resume. He's going to want this win more than any other win he's ever. It's a big step up for him in levels of not competition anymore, because it's actually, I can argue it's a step down in competition at where Souza is. But as far as what it's worth for him in his career, it's the most important fight. And he gave the matchmaker his word, who said, hey, dude, you just recovered from COVID. You're technically still not even recovered from it. And I'm already, because we're friends. That's the thing. He's friends with the matchmaker. They got a good personal relationship. They direct message each other back and forth. So for that reason, he gave his word to one of the most important, highest ranking positions, most important guy to your career. This guy can make or break your career. If he doesn't like you, he'll give you the worst matchups. Well, he gave his word that he's going to do great in this fight. He's going to win. He's going to be fine and healthy. He's not going to look bad. So if he lies to a guy like that in that position and doesn't fight smart and at his best and loses and looks bad, he's now ruined a relationship with a very important figure in the organization. He won't do that. He's going to be the most motivated, happiest to be there and in there and wanting to show his skill set and get if he can get through a guy like this, his next fight's got to be top 10, top 5, top 15 minimum, if not with a name value like his now, with the impressive dominating wins, because you guys remember another reason why you should know he's value in this card. The last time we seen Kevin Allen, he was a -700. He was the biggest favorite in that card, in a card full of good fighters. He was the biggest favorite of that card. And now he's at a pick'em, underdog. So what happened? It was only months ago. And he's not fighting a guy who's on a 12-fight win streak, knocking people's heads off in the first round. This is a guy who's at the end of his career, whose last notable win, was a guy who was on a 6-fight losing streak. Chris Weidman was down 6 fights until he fought against Omari, whatever his name is, who was a mismatch, if you ask me. It was a big different levels of skill sets. Anyways, and size difference. So before that, he was on a 6-fight losing streak. And that's the only guy he's beat in many years almost. Anyway, so Kevin Holland is an excellent value pick besides the other guy we just mentioned before him, Rafael. Those two guys together in a 2-leg parlay or just single bets, awesome value. You're going to get like 5 times your money back, guys. And especially if you do it the way I'm going to see the prop bets, if you wanted to get greedy. But for me, it's not. I'll do both. I can do a bet with the props that pays even. Like, remember, I found you guys the biggest favorite of the year, not of the event. The biggest favorite of the year, -14. No, it was like -1,700 when the fight started. I got you guys +200 for that fight. The girl was -1,400 opening. So by fight night, she came -16, -1,700, Shevchenko. The Bullet. And I got you +200 on that fight because I found you how she was going to win. And nobody else called it. Everybody else did the opposite. They called round 1, round 2, round 3. She was going to put her away. I told you guys that the girl was undefeated. I'm sorry, it was never put away in the last 8-9 years. Nobody submitted or TK'd. And I told you that Shevchenko won't be headhunting. She's going to be very smart and patient. She's not going to be desperate because she's the champ. The challenger has to come to her and be desperate for the finish, not the other way around. So with her being very calculated and patient and Maya being durable, hasn't been finished, I said there's no way it's a parlayable prop bet. I hardly ever tell you prop bets are parlayable, but when I do, it's almost money in the bank. So I told you this is a girl who, instead of putting $1,400 down on, you could put $100 on and make 3 times more than you would have made if you put $1,400. That's value, that's skills, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing for you guys. And you're watching this channel, I'm assuming, because I could do things like that. If I could do it on a -1,400, I'll do it on a -100 even better. So hit the likes, hit the subscribe so I can keep coming with the content. And more importantly, if you want to make more money during these crazy pandemic era times that we're living in, hit the Patreon, man. You won't regret it, man. Listen to the comments, look at the reviews. I'm not, you see this knowledge. If I can do it to bring you this type of stuff, what can I do for the people I'm dedicated and determined to try to win money? All right, guys, so let's go back on track now. Renato, oh yeah, we already did that. Kevin Holland, we did that. Ciryl Gane, he's a -420. And I would expect this line that's already pretty been, and not too many people know. The casuals don't really know who Ciryl is. If they did, he'd be a -900 right now probably. But it's surprisingly enough, it's hardly moved since the opening, so I don't expect it to move much. So it's not a big deal if you don't hit on it, but if you want to hit it now, it'd be even better for you guys. Cup Swanson versus Daniel Pineda. Pineda is a -150, open to a identical. It's actually going the other way, so it's probably, this is a harder one to tell, and it's been pretty much the same where it opened up at. You can weight or not doesn't make a difference. It's just whatever you guys feel like on this one. It won't make a difference. Probably even waiting would be better. Anyways, Dwight Grant versus Li Jingliang, minus 210. I would say this one is another one that won't change much. It's only moved 15 decimals. So points. So it's 225 to 2. Yeah, it's only moved hardly anything. And it's going in the direction of our favor. So that's a good thing. So if you waited, I guess it'd be a little bit better maybe. The next fight is Andrea Lee and Robertson. I believe that one's been canceled. 3 fights on this fight are canceled so far. Hopefully we don't lose any more fight night. Alright. And don't forget also, after the weigh-in and post face-off video segment, I'm going to be bringing you guys prop bets, my fade of the week, and my underdogs I'll recap on. And see where because sometimes underdogs could turn up from favorites. Somebody could have been a favorite and now underdog, so we'll hammer him, you know. So I got to do the underdog segment right before the fights on Friday. I'll do the same segment with the post weigh-in face-off signs that I picked up on, along with underdogs. I will recap in case new ones emerged. And then we'll also do the prop bets, so we can find out ways to, for example, turn that minus 1,400 into plus money for you guys. Again, these are things I'm doing because it's December, Christmas around the corner. I'm doing it for generosity reasons. But after that, it's got to go in January. You might as well. And there's perks. When you join the Patreon, they send you merchandise from my show. So you'll have like something cool that you can go and we're outside at the mall and pick up girls or guys if that's what you're into. If you're a girl and you want to pick up guys, you'll have a cool t-shirt or a hat. And then when somebody sees you wearing it, because it's going to be the coolest merchandise ever, the coolest gear, because, you know, your man Parlay King over here, he's the coolest cat in town. So you got to look like me. If you're going to wear my gear, it's got to be the coolest things in town, or else I'm going to be responsible for that. So I got a lot of pressure to make it look real fly for you guys. So you get merchandise, points, other perks. So read into it at the Patreon website. It's in the description. You guys will be able to see all the different benefits of joining up there, okay? Billy Quarantillo, a guy I'm real high on. I really like. Oh, wow. See? Well, last time I talked, go back to my first video on this segment. When I brought it to you, this is how you guys can appreciate me, okay? When I told you guys to pick Billy Quarantillo, he was an underdog. He was at pick'ems at where it was minus 110 to like minus 105. So he was just barely underdog. It was almost pick'ems, even money, okay? So you would have got $100 on top of your $100 back. So you bet 100, you would have won 200. If you go back to my video that I posted a few days ago telling you to pick Billy Quarantillo, I even told you guys I found some insight, like he just bought a house. He'll be super motivated. He needs the performance bonus. $50,000 bonus for the night to help him for the house that he just bought. He's ultra motivated this time. He's very skilled. He's got the better cardio. He's got the better overall game. And if it wasn't for recency bias, because Gavin Tucker beat a guy who I was fading, Justin James, I told you was not UFC caliber. So he even looked bad against Justin James for so majority of a lot of the entire fight that before he ended up winning, he was actually losing that fight against the fade. So against a guy like Billy Q, should be still, even though it's moved a drastic amount, right now you'll on your $100, instead of getting another 100 on top of it, plus your 100 back, you're only going to get like $40 or $50. Half of your profits have gotten cut because you waited. So this is a fight, you got to hammer it fast. And that's why I told you guys there was value, and I don't see why he's not a bigger favorite. Well, they're picking up on it, and now he is a bigger favorite. So I imagine by fight night, he'll be somewhere in the area of probably minus 200-300s even. Okay, so Billy Q is going to win that fight against Gavin Tucker. Sooner the better if you're on Billy Q. Some people I've noticed on their channels, they were talking about Gavin Tucker having a chance. So if you're one of those guys, you can wait. The longer you wait, the better for you guys. Chase Hooper, not very high on him. He's lined up at a way bigger number. I can see this being a parlay ruiner for people who are the types that follow statistics based off of lines and stuff like that. Don't do too much research. We'll get fooled by this. Peter, they call him Peter Slippery Barrett. He's a slippery guy. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled the upset here. Chase Hooper is not very impressive. He lost against a guy who wasn't impressive either. What is his nickname? They call him, I think, the Afro something. Caceres, whatever. He beat him pretty badly, and Caceres was a replacement for, I think, Chikaze, and Chikaze was I think a favorite, or I can't, but I think he was a big favorite. But for some reason, Chase Hooper became the favorite, I think, in that fight, and he still lost. So the last time we seen him as a favorite, if I'm not mistaken, he lost pretty badly. It wasn't even a close fight. I think he got finished even. Let me check. All right, Chase Hooper, who's got a 9-1 record. Again, on paper, that's probably why he's such a big favorite. It can be deceiving. He looks like he's really better than he is. Oh, no, it was a unanimous decision. But I could have sworn, if I'm not mistaken, I got to look back at that fight. But I thought he almost got finished early on, too. If I'm not mistaken, I got to look back at that fight. But I remember almost thinking the fight was over with. Anyways, Alex Caceres, somebody I'm not very high on. He lost to him in his last fight, so he's coming off his first loss. And Peter Barrett's not the worst fighter. You know, he's out a decent record, 11-4. And not really anything special to talk about. He was in some bad positions with Yusuf Zalal, the Moroccan devil, had put him in some bad positions. He was able to slip his way out of them. So I guess maybe but he had a nickname from before that fight. So, but yeah, he's just somebody who's not that bad of a fighter for me to put -400 on a guy who he's fighting, who I'm not high on. No, thank you. I don't want anything to do with this fight. I may maybe consider some prop bets. I'll look into more deeper for the patrons, especially. They'll definitely at least get my best pick for that fight, whatever it be, maybe the overs. But if they have to bet it, I recommend everybody to stay off this fight, not to bet it. There's too many way better valued fights on this card. And remember, a lot of people that tell you to pass on them because they don't know, they're not confident with their picks, they're not trusting of the people. I'm doing it because it's just not worth it. It's just funny. If somebody tells you, here, with your $100, I'll find you a way to bring back $300, or I'll find you a way to bring back $5, what would you do? Anybody would be smart enough to know I'd rather have $300 back instead of $5 back. Well, we're sophisticated enough and able to, and good enough to do more stuff with our money than what that Chase Hooper fight can do. That is not even the more confident pick of mine anyway. So the guy is just not the better fighter of all the other fighters that we could have depended on who pay way better. Anyways, back up. Who we got? Oh man, very disappointed to break this news to you guys, but Dwight Grant, Li Jingliang, one of the better fights on the card, would probably got performance or fight of the night canceled. COVID. Dwight Grant got COVID. So who knows when they'll reschedule that. All right, we're pretty much almost done, man. I think we're done. We got Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Janarova. I told you guys Janarova is a very good live dog here. I think she should even be the favorite if it wasn't for name value, recency bias, mistakes from Ronda Marcos, and I don't know why. She's just so she's always been underrated, undervalued, unappreciated by the masses. I think Verna Janarova is one of the better fighters, best fighters in women's MMA, man. I just compare her to some of the greatest, like her skill sets, her takedowns, her takedown defense, her power, her skill sets, her submission game, everything, all around, complete fighter, man. Just awesome fighter. And there's levels to like striking and grappling and wrestling, and she's way beyond Mackenzie Dern's. If the odd makers were not fixed on just recency bias and name values and stuff like that, they should have known better than to put Jerna. They should have at least made it a pick'ems at best, at worst. But she's a pretty big size underdog, and I think she, unless she decides to make the worst mistake ever, which was like what Ronda Marcos did, and she regretted it. She said it was a mistake, and even in the interview after the fight, Mackenzie Dern said, I was very surprised to see that she followed me down to the ground. And the reason she was down on the ground, Mackenzie Dern, and Marcos followed her down there is because she got knocked down. So she would have been losing that fight very badly if Ronda Marcos showed some good IQ and just stood back and said to the referee, stand her back up. I'm not going down there to play jiu-jitsu with her because I'm winning this fight. She would have won that fight. And Ronda Marcos is not as good of a fighter. I hate to say it, and I like Ronaldo Marcos, but the levels. This opponent is just a much better all-around fighter. I mean, this is called mixed martial arts. Mixed, keyword mixed. She just got the way better mixed skill set. So my money's on the plus side over here. All right, man, that's it. You guys already got more than you deserve. I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for your time. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, or I'll beat you up the next time I see you. All right, guys, enjoy your fights coming up. Don't forget for the next segments, very important stuff, time sensitive. Hit the reminders, likes, notifications, and all that good stuff. Join the Patreon so I can show you my bet slips. Combinations are very important for you guys. Remember, we went 40 out of 47 cashed in. The minimum of these parlays are like 4 to 1 odds. And there are some from like with Jack Collier in them from 9 to 10 to 1, 13 to 1. So we got an awesome week coming up, and the week after that is even better. So very excited to bring you guys back-to-back weeks right before the holidays. So it's worth it. I get for the price of a Happy Meal, you can get some thousands of dollars worth of money-making tips. So hope to see you guys in there. See you soon.